Go ahead.
Good. The resolution we are here to discuss today is there is a bad moon on the rise. Now, when I thought of a bad moon rising, I think of the news and all of the discrimination between people today. Thinking of Israel and Palestine and all of the differences between opinions on religion and land and all these things. And many people discriminate for religious reasons. But a lot of this comes from a lack of knowledge and understanding of religions. Now, from this, I derive the case topic, there should be a mandatory religion class taught to all high school students. Now, my definitions. I define should as ought to be, mandatory as required in order to graduate, religion class as a class that would teach all religions without any bias toward one, and high school students as all students grades 9 through 12 at a public high school. Now, my first contention is that this will create an appreciation for beliefs. When people learn about religions, they gain a greater knowledge in religion and their ideals, but also of just the world in general. You get a diversity of knowledge. You understand beliefs of people from all across the world. You understand people from the Middle East, Asia, Europe, even South America. All these places have different religions and different beliefs as a result of them. And not to mention that you're going to be receiving unbiased information. This will create a neutral knowledge base in your mind and will allow the students to create their own opinions based on this knowledge. There aren't going to be teachers teaching to force a student to believe in one religion or another. These students will have the ability to choose for which religion they want to believe in or not believe in any, based on this unbiased knowledge. My second contention is that it promotes an individual opinion. Now, as I was just saying, this uninfluenced perspective of religion will allow students to create their own ideas and basically come up with what they want to do. A lot of times you see parents choosing what religion their kids are going to practice. They'll bring them to church or masses or the mosque or the synagogue, but this class will allow students to create their own opinions and not have to listen to what their parents say and what their parents tell them to do. It's giving kids the choice to believe in what they want to believe in. And my third contention is that it enhances overall learning. A lot of literary allusions are to the Bible. I know the AP language class actually requires students to read the Bible for part of their summer reading because a lot of great literary works and texts make references to the Bible and the Quran and all of these great literary works from ancient times. And you'll have a better understanding of all of these works if you have knowledge in the religions behind them. Especially in history and English, the same goes. And basically this just deepens your understanding of religion and the classes you are taking. It gives you a deeper understanding of history, English, even science and math. You could make ties to religion. With that, I'd like to close and thank you for acknowledging me, and I urge you to vote in favor of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recognizing me today. The resolution we were presented with was that there is a bad moon on the rise, and the case topic that I derived from this was that the United Nations should create an official global language for the world. Miscommunication and a lack of understanding have been predominantly due to us not speaking each other's languages. I believe that there's a bad moon on the rise because countries and people are not cooperating with each other and are not understanding each other and what each other has to say. This bad moon on the rise can, however, be fixed. And the way that it can be fixed is if the United Nations adopt a global language for the world. I define the United Nations as the body of people, an official organization who represent their respective countries in the formal operational meaning. I define should adopt as ought to uptake. I define official global language as new language not affiliated with any current country, and for the world as to be taken up by all countries participating in the United Nations. My first contention is that this creates better cooperation between countries. Now, I'd like to tell you something I like to call the American Pie philosophy. The American Pie philosophy is the idea that every night and every table in the United States of America, a family can bond over a slice of warm apple pie and talk to each other, talk to their family, ask their family how their day went, ask their family, and bond with their family. Grow connections with their family that will last as long as they ask it to last. However, how can we ask our leaders, the people who we look to lead the world and set an example, to share that same connection, to create that same bond, if they can't speak the same language? How are they expected to share that apple pie when they aren't even using the same words? The other way that it would create better cooperation between countries is through the innovation and sharing of ideas and cultures. Now, one of the most predominant examples of this, of course, is the ISS, the International Space Station. Now, the ISS has shown that countries can work together. However, the government believes that this efficiency could be doubled, tripled, even quadrupled by people speaking the same language. Imagine if all the best engineers in the world had one language that they could use to speak to each other, to make sure that their ideas were heard and understood by each other. Imagine if every single one of the astronauts on the International Space Station could truly understand what each other was trying to say and make sure that they were working together in order to solve their problems quickly and efficiently. Finally, the sharing of cultures allows better cooperation because, as we know, language has a direct correlation to culture. If we create a culture for the world, instead of creating a culture based on religion or a culture based on geographic confinement, we can create a culture that incorporates everyone in the world and allows everyone to feel cooperative, and allows everyone to create those bonds and relationships that the government believes is incredibly important. My second contention is that it opens up opportunities for work, study, and relationships. Of course, as I go up to college and I realize that I have lots of opportunities to study, I realize that one of my options is studying abroad. Well, my fear with studying abroad, of course, is that I could go to a country where, of course, I know the language, but what type of environment am I putting myself into? What type of culture am I putting myself into? I don't necessarily know that, which is why I believe, and the government believes, if we had a global language for the United Nations to adopt and for the nations that are part of the United Nations to adopt, we would allow our students who are going out to study abroad and the students that are coming here to have no miscommunication. Imagine how hard it would be to find your dorm. Imagine how hard it would be to find your roommate if you can't speak the same language as them. This can all be fixed through the idea of a single global language. Businesses can now compete and correlate better internationally. Business deals, things like oil, water, and natural resources can now be better and more efficiently traded between nations due to no lack of miscommunication. No longer will prices be misorganized, no longer will deals be reneged on because the deals of the terms of the deal were not completely understood. Now we can argue that every single businessman, every single teacher, and every single student eventually should learn this global language. And certainly every single one of our leaders, because as we know, these opportunities, the leaders that we entrust with our livelihoods and the leaders that we trust to improve our international relationships must be the ones to take up the burden of this language and must be the ones who understand it and make sure that no longer will we have any loss of communication. Which is my third contention. There would be no loss of communication. Things like international incidents. One of my favorite examples of this, of course, is about 2 years ago. An Israeli man was shouting at a woman in the middle of New York to get out of the way of the cars because he believed that the cars were about to come into. And he started shouting at her in Arabic. And the woman completely misconceived, and was the people around them misconceived. And they thought that he was screaming at them in a terrorist way and in a terrorist attitude. And the man ended up getting arrested, and although he wasn't hurt, something like this, a man trying to help a woman from what he believed was danger, will no longer happen if we're all speaking the same language and if we all understand each other. Things like these international incidents would no longer happen. Mr. Speaker, I urge you to vote for the government, and I urge you to vote for a language and a world where we can all be together. Thank you, and I urge you to vote for the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. We are gathered here today to discuss the resolution, "There is a bad moon on the rise." Now, this quote comes from a song lyric, and to my understanding, songs are created for the listeners to interpret. Well, when I hear this quote, I immediately think about the growing demand for junk food in America. Fast food places are cheap but do not offer many healthy choices. Even the healthy places like Panera Bread, compared to McDonald's or Wendy's, is very expensive and many people cannot afford to eat there. This also goes for name brand companies like Stop and Shop and Dave's, where the unhealthy food is usually cheaper than the healthy food. So my topic is that healthy food should be made cheaper for all people to afford. I would like to define my terms. When I say junk food, I mean foods that are overly high in sugar or fat that are responsible for obesity. And when I say cheaper, I mean affordable to the people with average to lower than average salaries. My first contention is that junk food is too expensive in relation to healthy food, considering junk food is responsible for obesity in the United States. Since the healthy food is too expensive, people buy and consume unhealthy food. So please, for a second, think about all the overweight kids who want to fix that or who are ashamed of themselves. Exercise will only do so much, but they cannot afford the right nutrition, which prevents them from reaching their goals. These children are helpless and left with overweight and resulting in them having bad self-esteem. This brings me to my second contention. Obesity is responsible for bad self-esteem, which is a very bad problem for people of all ages. Poor self-esteem causes major problems like depression and even suicide. So in order to benefit our society, we need to try and eliminate this from our lives. Sure, the feelings one experiences is inevitable. However, if we are put in a situation where this is limited, then it will positively affect our society. My third contention is that obesity is responsible for giving our beloved country a bad name. It is not rare to hear people of foreign countries to comment on a stereotype about America, and that stereotype is being fat and unhealthy. So if possible, shouldn't we want to give our country a better name by cutting down on obesity? You see, the bad moon rising is the growing obsession for junk food, and I believe that it is possible and imperative to cut down this high percentage of Americans. Therefore, healthy food should be made cheaper in order for all people to afford it.
There's 0 correlation